faithfully delivering value by interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally Book Talk. Today we're interpreting the book for you, Eileen Chang's novella, Love in a Fallen City. Among modern Chinese writers, Eileen Chang's name stands out brilliantly, with readers deeply fascinated by her novels. Numerous studies about her are voluminous, even giving rise to Changology. But actually, Eileen Chang only became familiar to the contemporary public in the last 30 plus years. Chinese American scholar C.T.H.A. authored an English masterpiece, A History of Modern Chinese Fiction, and its Chinese translation was published in Hong Kong in 1979. At that time, mainland China had just begun its reform and opening up, culturally sparking an ideological liberation movement. Cultural goods from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan spread to the mainland through various channels, like Teresa Teng's tapes, Jin Yong's novels, TVB dramas, and books previously seen as contraband. Among them, C.T. Hai's work gradually circulated among a small number of scholars in universities. In his book, Mr. Hashia reevaluated the achievements of modern Chinese writers, challenging the classic ranking of Liusu, Gomoro, Mao Bajun, Lao She, and Cao Yu. He highlighted writers like Shen Kongwen, Pian Zhongshu, and Eileen Chang, praising Chang highly. This caught the attention of young mainland scholars who began searching for Chang's long-buried works in underground library stacks. This marks the initial reception history of Eileen Chang since the 1980s. Afterward, in 1992, Anhua Literature and Art Publishing House published Eileen Chang's collected works, and Zhejiang Literature and Art Publishing House published her complete essays. In 1993, with Professor Yu Bin's research on Chang's history at Nanjing University, Chang's works and papers emerged rapidly. Gradually, Chang became popular on the mainland, turning into one of the most remarkable literary phenomena since the 1990s. Eileen Chang's collected works and biographies had the highest borrowing rates among university students. Students in modern and contemporary literature programs almost all had a copy. Her related works became bestsellers right after publication, needing repeated reprints. Outside universities, urban white-collar workers were also keen on reading and discussing Eileen Chang. Her former residence in Shanghai was soon uncovered, becoming a pilgrimage site for artsy youth. Eileen Chang's life story has a legendary quality, which undoubtedly attracts literary youth. Eileen Chang was born in Shanghai in 1920. Her grandmother was Li Hongzhang's daughter, adding a touch of faded aristocracy to her life. Eileen Chang's grandfather left behind a large body of work. Though her father was a playboy, he possessed excellent literary cultivation. Growing up in such a family environment, Eileen Chang immersed herself in classical literature from an early age. Her mother was a modern woman who spent most of her life abroad. Her mother's trendy modern style, shaped by living abroad, formed another dimension of Eileen Chang's spirit. That's precisely why Chang's novels follow the tradition of classical Chinese domestic fiction while incorporating modern consciousness and techniques. In 1939, Eileen Chang graduated from a missionary school and entered the University of Hong Kong, but had to return to Shanghai midway due to the Pacific War. In 1943, Chang began publishing fiction in Shanghai and quickly rose to fame. Shanghai was then under Japanese occupation during the Lonely Island period, with oppressive atmosphere and depressed citizens. Chang's novels focused on domestic stories and romances among Shanghai commoners, satisfying people's need for leisure and stress relief. But back then, her work's reach was largely confined to Shanghai. By the 1950s, Chang's work no longer fit the mainstream literary scene. She left Shanghai for Hong Kong, then immigrated to the U.S. 3 years later. In mainland China, her works were gradually forgotten. When scholars rediscovered her in the 80s, she became intriguingly mysterious due to her unfamiliar works and legendary life. Meanwhile, Chang herself remained low-key and peaceful across the ocean. In September 1995, This legendary female writer passed away in Los Angeles. In this episode, we explore Chang's famous novella Love in a Fallen City, one of her most beloved works. Published in 1943, China adapted it into a stage play the following year. In 1983, director An Hui created a film adaptation. A new stage version premiered in 2006. The TV series adaptation was completed in 2009. Simply put, Love in a Fallen City tells the love story between Bai Liusu and Fan Liuyuan. Bai Liusu, divorced for years, had been living with her birth family. After her ex-husband died, her brothers and sisters-in-law pressured her to return to her in-laws to live as a widow with a distant relative. Mrs. Wu wanted to arrange a match for Bai's younger sister, seventh Miss, with Fan Liuan. But when meeting the Bai family, Fan took interest not in seventh Miss, but in Bai Liusu herself. Afterward, through Mrs. Yu's matchmaking, Bai Liusu went to Hong Kong to meet Fan Liuan. After many twists and turns, mutual testing, misunderstandings, and subtle struggles, they eventually became lovers and married amidst the flames of war. On the surface, the story of Love in a Fallen City resembles a romantic drama. However, the charm of this novel lies not in its plot, but in the characters crafted by the author. Let's examine the protagonist Bai Liusu and Fan Liuan. Bai Liuan was born into a wealthy feudal family. Her surroundings were extremely conservative and decaying, causing continuous harm to her body and mind. After her divorce, she returned to her birth family, but her brothers and sisters-in-law lost all her money in stock investments. After her ex-husband died, they aggressively drove her away. In the Bai family's eyes, daughters have no status, especially married ones. Her brother urged her that the 3 bonds and 5 constants must not be abolished. You belong to your husband's family in life and in death. Bai Liusu sought her mother's help, but her mother also advised her to go back, saying that, after enduring for a dozen years, she would eventually have her day. The spiritual harm inflicted by traditional extended families on the younger generation is one of the most common themes in modern Chinese literature. For the generation that grew up during the New Culture movement, young people had to exert immense effort to escape closed families. But by the 1940s, when Bai Liusu appears, resisting the inhumane environment of old families had become a consensus among the younger generation, especially urban youth. Bai Liusu's rebelliousness and modernity are precisely products of this broader context. So when her family pressured her to return to her ex-husband's home to live as a widow, she objected, using modern society's legal provisions. In her view, the legal process of divorce is a more authoritative system than traditional ethics. Of course, what best embodies the modern spirit in Bai Liusu is her sense of agency in attempting to control her own destiny. Despite the extreme difficulty of this persistence, after discovering that Fan Liuan liked her, and her family insinuated accusations of her not adhering to womanly virtues, she instead became calm. The novel depicts her inner thoughts. She felt like a person with no relatives to rely on. She only had herself. In her eyes, tears glistened, containing both sadness and hope. Bai Liusu knew that after her divorce, her fate wasn't completely lost. In her relationship with Fan Liuan, Bai Liusu's thinking clearly had utilitarian traits. On one hand, she didn't trust Fan at all, so she was extremely cautious, as if treading on thin ice. Mrs. Xu took Bai Liusu to Repulse Bay Hotel in Hong Kong, where they met Fan Liuyuan, who'd been waiting there. Originally a playboy with frivolous speech, Fan's ultimate ideal was to find a pure yet provocative woman, completely at odds with Bai's relationship goals. After reconciling from one quarrel, Bai felt forgiving him so easily was walking into a trap, signaling tolerance of his irresponsibility. If conflicts arose later, she couldn't blame Fan. Yet Fan was also Bai's last hope! So she probed Fan's heart, seeking even a shred of genuine emotion. The novel notes Bai believed Fan valued platonic love, which she endorsed since physical passion rarely leads to marriage, while spiritual love always does. Thinking of marriage, Bai imagined finding housing, furnishing it, and hiring servants. Women excel more than men at such matters. This thought made her dismiss minor misunderstandings with Fan. Such a calculating Bai Liusu can't be understood solely through female psychology or May 4th generation rebellion against old families. Liuxun famously asked, "What happens after Nora leaves?" Nora represented post-May 4th new women breaking domestic confines. But the outcome? Liuxun answered, "Without societal revolution, Nora faces two ends, degradation or return." Bai faced this dilemma too. She'd never return to Bai Mansion. She preferred staying alone in Hong Kong, even if her time with Fan was fleeting, confident he'd ensure financial security. Though seemingly dependent on Fan, theirs remained a relationship between independent individuals, even if mutually exploitative. Compared to Bai Mansion's atmosphere, Bai retained some autonomy with Fan, nor would she indulge in degradation. Another character, Princess Sahilini, daughter of an Indian royal, stranded in Hong Kong and kept by the wealthy, by Liusu Sahilini, she recognized the fate of drifting among men, knowing this lifestyle would only sink her deeper. So, could Bai Liusu truly control her fate through individualism? Without the sudden outbreak of war, the answer would likely be no. Predictably, Bai Liusu returned to Shanghai midway. After months, Bai Mansion treated her even more cruelly. Then, Fan Liuyuan invited her back to Hong Kong. This meeting brought substantial progress to their relationship. Fan rented a house, settled Bai there, and prepared to return to England for business. The day after Fan left, Japanese forces bombed Hong Kong. Bombs fell near Bai's apartment, and the knock at her door was Fan, who'd boarded ship but couldn't depart. Fan had come to take Bai to Repulse Bay Hotel, but even the hotel was unsafe, deepening Bai's worries. She feared for Fan's safety and being a burden. In life or death moments, neither had security. Bai had only Fan. And Fan had only Bai. However calculating she was, only her instinctive vitality proved reliable in war. And Fan sleeping beside her, suddenly she crawled to Fan's side and embraced him over his quilt. Fan reached out from under the quilt and grasped her hand. The novel writes, they saw through each other completely. A moment of total understanding. Yet that moment sufficed for years of harmony. Individualist calculations proved fragile, while cruel war taught acceptance. Their clasped hands symbolized soulful unity. Now they saw each other not as untrustworthy threats, but as true life-dependent lovers. Bai never truly answered Liuxun's question about Nora's fate after leaving home. External contextualization, letting her temporarily avoid this dilemma. If Bai was a semi-modern individualist, Fan was an overseas Chinese filled with illusions about China. Fan's father did business in England, conceiving him with a socialite. Fan grew up there until returning at 24. He'd held beautiful fantasies about China, but reality bitterly disappointed him upon return. After disappointment, he didn't change his imagination of China, but instead worked harder to find ideal Chinese people in the crowd, especially women. He liked Bai Liusu because he felt she was a true Chinese woman, and a true Chinese woman is timeless and forever beautiful. Actually, he couldn't clearly define what a true Chinese woman is. We can only glimpse it from some of his statements. First, he praised Bai Liusu's posture of lowering her head as beautiful. Then, in casual chat, he said, "You look like you're not from this world. You have many little gestures, a romantic atmosphere, very much like singing Peking opera." Thus, in his eyes, a true Chinese woman is merely a gestural existence or a symbolic portrait. Such a symbolic Chinese woman cannot survive in the dirty reality. So he felt that Bai Mansion distorted Bai Liusu. If he could bring Bai Liusu out, she would restore that pure and beautiful Chinese essence. Fan Liuan's ideas are very naive. Of course, this is related to him being born abroad. He feels both unfamiliar with China and yearns for it deeply, which became a complex for him. And he projected his ideals onto Bai Liusu. Rather than loving Bai Liusu as a person, he loved more the faint Chinese essence in her posture, which also made his expectations for love full of literariness. One night, family Yuan called Bai Liusu, whiningly accusing her of not loving him. "Oh my!" Bai Liusu retorted. "How so?" He quoted a line from the Book of Songs. "In life and death, thick and thin, I pledge to you. Holding your hand, I grow old with you." He further explained, "I see that as the saddest poem. Life, death, and parting are all major events, not controlled by us. Compared to external forces, we humans are so small, yet we insist on saying, 'I'll always be with you, we'll never part in this lifetime,' as if we were in control." In Fan Liyuan's heart, ideal love is that life and death vow in ancient Chinese poetry. But paradoxically, perhaps due to limited Chinese proficiency, he misquoted the original poem's "pledge to you" as "delight with you," which sounds more like emphasizing the joy in the love process. I mean, Whereas the original verse emphasizes more the sincerity of making mutual vows. This change unintentionally revealed family Yuan's nihilistic imagination of love.
So Bai Lusu angrily retorted, "Just say you don't want to get married already. Why beat around the bush? What do you mean you can't decide?"
Even someone as old-fashioned as me knows the saying, "When married, follow your husband. When remarried, follow your own self." You're such a free-spirited person if you can't decide for yourself. Who's going to decide for you? This dialogue brilliantly reveals the fundamental conflict between them. Bai Liusu wants practical stability, but Fan Liyuan places too many literary expectations on love. This creates a constant sense of misalignment in their emotional expression, leading to mutual distrust. After the turmoil, Fan Liyuan stares blankly into the distance, sensing terror in the post-war calm. He quotes the poem again. "Fate brought us to truly fall in love. Oh, we were too busy dating. Where was the time for real love?" The implication is that reality did offer him a life and death opportunity, but the romantic Chinese charm he expected from the Book of Songs was gone. Conversely, if reality hadn't shattered his fantasies, how could their current affection be possible? In modern terms, Bai Liusu and Fan Liyuan are both shrewd individuals, but they're both lovable. In the end, their emotions found a brief refuge amidst the war. They adjusted their ways in the relationship, yet neither was content with the uncertainty. This adds to the charm of love in a fallen city. When first published, Mr. Foulet commented that nearly half of Love in a Fallen City is flirtation, a spiritual game of cynical hedonists. Despite its wit, artistry, and charm, it's ultimately a product of a society refined to near morbidity. In short, according to Mr. Foulet, Love in a Fallen City prioritizes brilliance over substance. The flaws of the protagonists are flaws of the work itself. Mr. Foulet's evaluation is overly harsh. Love in a Fallen City crafts two well-rounded characters through their cynical flirtation. It reflects the rich zeitgeist and contains serious reflections. As for saying it prioritizes brilliance over substance, if substance refers to the work's internal spiritual support, this criticism is debatable. Throughout Love in a Fallen City, the writing on time, themes, and dramatic situations is intertwined, forming the true backbone of the novel. At the beginning, the novel describes how Shanghainese people set their clocks forward an hour to save time. But Bai Mansion uses an old clock. Their 10 o'clock is 11 o'clock for others. They sing out of tune, unable to keep up with life's hukin. The hukin creaks back and forth on a night lit by thousands of lanterns. The stories on the hukin should be performed by glamorous actors. Long strips of red rouge frame a jade-like nose. She sings and laughs, sleeves covering her mouth. Yet, here only Fourth Master Bai sits alone on a dim, dilapidated balcony, playing the hukin. This scene describes the relentless passage of time and uses actors to symbolize human distortion and passivity in the flow of time. Somehow, the two important themes of time and dramatic situations are highlighted here, setting the tone for the entire novel.
As the plot develops, both themes undergo further variation and continuation.
First, let's look at the development of the time theme. Mrs. Yu comes, Bai Liusu sees her off, then stands downstairs, looking at the hall. The novel writes, The mechanism of the chiming clock has long been broken, stopped for years, flanked by crimson couplets shimmering with golden longevity motifs. By Liusu feels she is like a character on the couplet, floating unreal, not grounded. By mansion somewhat resembles an immortal's cave. Here, drifting through a day, feels like 1,000 years have passed in the world, but spending 1,000 years here is almost the same as one day. Because every day is the same monotony and boredom, the broken chiming clock and the tedium of life further reinforce the theme of time stagnation. More specifically, this time stagnation targets the rigid moral views in Bai Mansion. It's suffocating, as if time has been sealed away, no longer flowing. On a walk near a gray brick wall below Repulse Bay Hotel in Hong Kong, Fan Liuan said, "Somehow this wall reminds me of phrases like the end of the world. One day, if our entire civilization is destroyed, everything gone, burned, bombed, collapsed, maybe only this wall remains. By Liusu, if we meet at the base of this wall, then maybe you'll have a bit of sincerity for me. Maybe I'll have a bit for you." After the war ended, they both returned to their own house. At night, in the deathly silent city, Bai Liusu felt everything was over. Civilized people with lost memories stumble in twilight, groping blindly. All is lost. Bai Liusu thought again of that gray wall near Repulse Bay. In both descriptions, the time theme reappears, but with evolved meaning. The gray wall represents civilization's end, referencing humanity's historical timeline to underscore life's fragility and impermanence. Now observe the evolution of dramatic situations. The novel's opening states, "Hukin's stories should be performed by radiant actors." Long streaks of rouge framing a jade nose, singing, laughing, sleeves covering mouths. Here Bai Liusu becomes an audience member, distantly observing Bai Mansion's drama, refusing involvement. After Mrs. Xu's matchmaking, knowing Fan likes her, Bai hears her brother's Hukin. Following its cadence, she tilts her head, flashes a coy look, gestures. He suddenly smirks maliciously. The music stops abruptly, while outside, the Hukin plays on. But the Hukin now tells distant tales of loyalty and righteousness, no longer relevant to her. This passage variations the opening opera theme, unusually conveying joy as Bai sees hope, the drama indirectly expressing her happiness. The novel concludes, Hong Kong's fall fulfilled her. But in this irrational question, who knows cause from effect? Who truly knows? Perhaps to fulfill her, a metropolis fell. Thousands died, thousands suffered, followed by earth-shaking reforms. Everywhere legends bloom, yet few conclude so neatly. The Hukin creaks through lantern-lit nights, telling endless, desolate stories, best left unasked. Here time and drama reunite, echoing Bai Mansion's clocks and Hukin from the opening. Unlike before, the ending Hukin seems to include Bai and Fan's story. They too become legend. As for time's flow, whether dying traditions or collapsing civilizations, none discern causes. Amid chaos, only ordinary souls like Bai and Fan live on. Lowly, authentic, tenacious. In single quotes, Love in a Fallen City, Eileen Chang sings an elegy for declining culture amid chaos, while also celebrating worldly romance. Many called Chang's work popular, yet miss the historical reflection she subtly weaves beneath surface plots. This backbone gives depth beyond melodramatic flotations. Many claim Chang's works are petty, focusing only on commoners' daily lives, without lofty sentiments. Those familiar with modern Chinese literature know many writers depict national pride and historical grandeur through heroic styles. Such texts deserve respect, but literature encompasses all life. Life's fundamental stories unfold through ordinary people. Though humble and unable to alter history's course, their journeys of joy, sorrow, and mortality possess profound, moving power. Literature records generations' ordinary lives, chronicles human joys and griefs, preserving dignity for humanity. From her 1940 Shanghai fame to 1990's mainland resurgence, during those 50 years, mainland China's literary landscape underwent repeated transformations. For long periods, modern literature meant mainstream realism, sometimes narrowed to revolutionary realism, creating demand for novelty amid monotony. Thus, Chang's sudden emergence, her unfamiliar perspectives, ordinary characters' secular lives, and unconventional language naturally captivated readers. By the 1990s, Chang's reach, both in readership size and geographic spread, far exceeded her 1940s Shanghai audience. Chang rose to fame in the 1940s, left China in the 1950s, and never returned. She was resolute, indifferent to fame. When her mainland popularity surged in the 90s, she considered authorizing her Shanghai uncle to handle copyright, but abandoned it upon learning it required embassy approval. This led to prolonged lack of official authorization domestically. In the 1990s, Shanghai's Pudong development surged, becoming a new engine for mainland China's market economy. Along with this economic boom came a research fever for Republican-era Shanghai, with tons of popular history books and old photos published. They somewhat carried a tone of rehabilitating old Shanghai because for a long time, Shanghai had been viewed as a symbol of capitalist commercial culture. The sensational impact of Eileen Chang is also connected to the backdrop of China's economic rise represented by Shanghai. Compared to other contemporary writers, Eileen Chang rarely addressed the era's core issues. She only wrote about ordinary daily life in Shanghai, finding small record-worthy moments within, and she always kept distance from mainstream discourse, often drifting beyond the world she wrote about. Just like in Love in a Fallen City, finally she withdraws her gaze from Liusu and Fan Liuan's lives, standing aloof like hearing an absurd legend from an old opera. She didn't trust anything more lasting. She merely suspended the conflict between Liusu and Fan Liuan through war's sudden intervention, as if she couldn't bear to reveal their future hardships. Each major upheaval stops time, making us feel time's crushing weight while recklessly igniting our will to live. We tell ourselves, seize the moment, live well. What if we were in another history, another crisis, instead of war? All right, that concludes our interpretation of Eileen Chang's Love in a Fallen City. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.